burn less gas and be as warm as you were before. And there are a couple of things going on in the world at the moment to do with an energy crisis and a war somewhere, which makes us even, and climate change, which makes fixing waste like that more importantly. Now, I've spent 10 years developing a product which I've just basically sold on to a bigger company to save energy in the home, which you need to install and so on, but you could do it yourself and it wasn't that expensive. But this one has the merit of being essentially free. So, all right, since Bob says condensing boiler. So if you have ever stood outside a house while the boiler is running, you see a plume of sort of steam coming out of the pipe. Right, well, if it does that with a condensing boiler, it hasn't been set up correctly, because that stuff that's coming out the pipe is hot, which means we're throwing energy out the wall. So what happens with a condensing boiler is when the water comes back from your radiators, returns from the radiators cool, it's used to cool down those gases, extract the heat from them and go back into your boiler, saving about 8% of the gas it would otherwise burn. So a big test for you if you've got a condensing boiler is, do you get a plume of steam coming out the flue when it's running? And if you do, then you should possibly pay attention to this next bit I'm doing. So a number of people have noticed this problem, and the reason every installer will basically install your boiler running quite hot. So the flow temperature, that's the temperature of the water flowing out of the boiler to your radiators, is usually set quite high, 70 degrees. That's hot enough to hurt yourself. I'm a governor of a school. I was at a primary school. I was running at 80. You could take a limb off a small child at 80 degrees. Anyway, they set them high because what they can't be bothered with is being called back to fix it because someone claims they're cold. The problem is it's essentially fraud to go and install an expensive boiler which costs twice what it would otherwise do and disable its most important feature. So, in principle, let me tell you the technical thing. In order to get that condensing thing to happen and get the heat out of the flue, the water returning from the radiators should be below 55 degrees C. For those of you like graphs, it's a graph which goes like this in terms of efficiency, and this point down here, this knee, is at 55. And another point for you, if you've got a system set up for gas boilers, is that your system is generally designed to have the water come out of the bottom of the radiator 11 degrees colder than it goes in. So there should be 11-degree drop across your radiator. So who's going to do a mental arithmetic for me and tell me what the maximum flow temperature is you should have? 55 plus 11 is...
I've got a calculator.
Yeah, exactly. It's not 70.
65 is a bit, maybe.
It's something. It's not 70.
Come, 6.
Come on.
It's fine.
It's not 70. So how can we fix this? So I'm trying to single-handedly, yet again, save the planet by Christmas. And I'm trying to come up with a scheme. Now, at the previous Kingston Invents, we were talking about a number of other things, some other inventions I've got in mind, but a very smart chap who's in the audience, a friend of mine, came up with this idea or a variant on it. Trying to do something so the user themselves could do it. Do you remember in sort of 10 years ago, the electricity company or the gas company would mail you out a fluorescent light bulb, one of those CFLs, because they could claim they were saving carbon at that point? Well, this is a scheme that'd be cheaper than that, for about £1 per person, and I'm talking to one of the bigger energy companies about it at the moment. They could mail you out this little kit, which is a one-page instruction and a pair of stickers. And I'd like, if some of you in the audience would like to help me run an experiment and tell me whether it works or not, I've got a few, I've got 6 I could hand out today. But essentially, to keep it as simple as possible, you go and find a radiator that you use frequently, put one of these stickers at either end where one of the pipes is and where the other pipe is, and you don't need to know which is flow and which is return, just stick them on. If the temperature of the radiator gets above 55, the sticker will go dark. So if both stickers go dark, then your boiler's running too hot and you turn it down a bit. And other people have written very nice guides, which I link to on here, which tell you how to turn it down. So, does everyone understand how this mechanism works? Who would like to participate? I've got 6. Okay, I think I can do that. Don't all fight at the... No knives, okay? So I'll stick them here if anyone wants to just come up and get them. And that's basically it. So the point is that these are so cheap, these are 35 pence a shot, and you can buy them off the shelf, that I would like, ideally, although then no one will have quite this many in stock, that all the 20 odd million houses in the UK that have a condensing gas boiler should get one of these mailed to them. That's my little plan. So I'm done.
So questions for
Yep.
you.
And please do come up and get some of these.
Okay. Yeah. If you can understand that it is too hot,
Yeah.
can you also understand if it's too cold?
So there isn't really, too cold only happens if it doesn't make your house hot enough. Another advantage of 55, by the way, if you can run with your thing at 55 flow, is you can put a heat pump in. Okay. So the only risk of running it too low is that you might not get hot enough, you might not get warm enough on the coldest days.
Okay.
There are no other risks. Now, there was one extra point I didn't say clearly enough. If you've got a boiler which uses, which has hot water tank as well, it's slightly more complicated because you're advised to keep your hot water above 60 degrees to avoid certain Legionella problems. So I'm only giving this advice at the moment for people who don't have a hot water tank. But actually, in practice, 55 will do for that, and you're not going to die of Legionella, or it won't grow at 55.
Do you know what the split is between those with a hot water cylinder and those?
I don't. I think the majority is without. I mean, but I don't know. It's the simple answer.
Hot water is supposed to be higher than 50 degrees.
But higher than 55 is probably fine, right? But the other thing to do, if someone was going to be, and I'm trying to do the simple one. This is only version 0.2 of this, and I need to go through another few rounds of testing and then try and right. This is only talking about the case without a tank. Now, my first testee does have a tank, and we've settled on 60. That will probably work for him. It's keeping the water hot enough in his tank, but he's an ex-engineer, so if I explain to him, just turn it up once a week to pasteurize it, and the modern systems will do that automatically, that will also deal with it. So a modern heat pump will pasteurize at 60 degrees for a few minutes once a week anyway.
Why didn't British Gas get involved and help you?
Because British Gas, when they want to, British Gas have an appalling record of doing service. I've heard of one good story and about 99 bad ones. They want to obviously get the maximum, do the minimum work for their annual service thing. So what they come and do is they do the absolute minimum required in law, which is check the amount of CO or CO2 in your flue glasses, and that's it. Now, it would be ideal, and I do intend to have a conversation with British Gas, that they did this, because they could do it with proper tools, right, rather than this, when they come round. And I'm kind of hoping to shame them into it, so I exchanged emails with someone senior at Octopus this morning, and they're interested. Now, if we were to get Octopus to do it, then we might shame British Gas into doing the right thing. But they will have to be shamed because it will cost them money. But it might be good greenwash for them as well, because given the kicking they're getting at the moment, spending 20 million quid on this might be good. So I have been funded by British Gas before, by the way, Centrica, to help save carbon. So they're not all bad, but their service division is not who I would look to for help in this situation necessarily.
Yeah, I think my experience from the organisations like British Gas is that they will do things, and it is greenwash. You know, they're supplying smart meters, for example, even to people who don't need them or know how to use them, and we can count that as a credit. This is what we're doing to save the planet. I mean, I don't know how many smart meters have been put out
More
in
than
the UK.
50% now domestic.
And I can't, I'd be rather fascinated to see if there are any unbiased research reports to see who's using them and what benefit they might give, because
You're a little bit cynical. I think there's reasonably good evidence to suggest that there are, simply by having a thing there and people being aware what's going on, there are between 2 and 10% savings. But it does also facilitate things like time of use tariffs, which you can't do without. So I think I think you're a little on the cynical side there. And they're obliged by law to put them
Damon's
in.
calling me cynical.
Yes, no. So look, anyone who wanted one of these, please come and get one of these. Oh, any more questions?
So
by the way?
just one question. I'm installing a new bathroom in my home, and just
You have a bath in your
Yeah, I
house?
know, well,
Goodness, I'm still standing in the street to do
He's
that.
got a house.
Yeah, I know.
Damon, I've disconnected the condensate pipe underneath the boiler, and I'm fascinated by the amount of condensate I get from the boiler, depending on what the boiler's doing. Question, and I just thought, because I met you the other week, is the rate of condensate an indication of the efficiency of the boiler? Or
It's
does it have any
interesting.
connection?
I think what the rate of condensate should be, so if you get no condensate, it implies it isn't condensing, and if the boiler's doing something, it implies it's too hot. But I would assume that if it is set up correctly, the rate of condensate generation is entirely proportional to the rate of heat you're putting into your system. I mean, it will be, proportional to the amount of burning that's going on.
Because you could measure it, and whether that, based on the ambient temperature, the room temperature, and humidity, because the humidity would also affect that.
No, because that's sealed, that's bringing in air from outside.
Okay.
It brings in air from
I
outside.
just thought you might be able to measure that, have some.
Well, I don't. It's nasty to corrosive stuff, and it should all be sealed, and users shouldn't get anywhere near it. It's quite possible the boiler internally measures that stuff, because you'll have heard there were scare stories when we had a very cold winter of these things freezing up, and so quite a lot of the boilers I think now are clever. For example, rather than trickling the stuff out, which allows it to freeze up, they send it out in big bursts.
Oh,
And so they may be monitoring what's going on themselves, but I don't think it's anything the user needs to look in, like a nuclear power station. You just let other people do that bit. Oh, hi. Yeah.
Completely get it, love it. What organisations, groups should we be evangelising this to, and where do we send them?
There's an address. Bob has my email address. At worst, send stuff to Bob, and it'll come to me. I have a very short email address, d@hd.org, and there's also an address on the bottom of here. So the obvious routes are energy companies, because they know who's got gas, landlords, including social landlords. For example, yesterday I was speaking to the woman for Kingston, who is the officer in charge of making homes energy efficient. She's the right sort of person. Charities, local environmental groups. I mean, there's one who routinely go around and help people put the foil behind their radiators and stuff. They're the right sort of people to do it. I don't know, I would have thought many of those sort of social support organisations, Citizens Advice, people like that. But I mean, you should be able to get to any one person via a number of routes, via their energy supplier or local organisations or the local authority. Or their landlords, yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how long has your business been running? How long have you been doing it?
Oh, this idea came up 6 weeks ago.
Just 6 weeks?
This is, and it wasn't it wasn't my idea. The idea came from someone else, but I've run with it because, making a difference this winter will be helpful. Okay. My previous business, which means I was thinking about it, has been going for 10 years.
Oh.
But
so,
it's not quite connected to this.
I was just wondering, how did you actually get it started? When you actually first started with your business idea, how did you get it out there? How did you get it out into the open?
Okay. Well, the predecessor to this one, I don't want to steal all your thunder again. Predecessor to this one was a heating control for homes, and in the first instance, I was talking to the guy who was chief scientist for the Department of Energy and Climate Change, because I knew him through his publishers. It's a very weird story. Anyway, I knew him. And so we were talking about what we thought would be efficient. We discussed it. He organised a conference in the government, so I got to in a big fancy government meeting room, and I got to meet all sorts of people. And then I published it open source, and then I entered some competitions. British Gas again was doing some competitions, and I met my business partner to be there, who said, "I'll come and help you do all the non-technical bits of this." And we then set about, going to people like across the way as Digital Catapult. They were good ways of getting your ideas out at meetings and so on. So lots and lots and lots of different ways.
So if I got my boiler and I've got a return temperature of 65, so I'm getting no condensation, and then I've got one of your smart discs and I get it down to 55.
8% saving in theory.
Thank you very much.
6 to 8 is what Nesta say. But
I don't have to ask, but as much as that is 6 to 8.
Look, there's another thing which is not keeping it simple. There's another thing. If you've also got a keep warm option on your boiler for the hot water, turn that off. That's probably taking you another 5% at the moment. And obviously, that's before you do anything like turn down your temperature. Every degree you turn down the actual temperatures in the room is another 10% saving. So those are all on top of one another, by the way. But this is just one item. Makes no difference to your comfort.
Do we know in money terms? But obviously customers like knowing.
Yeah, and it is something I want to work on this, and I would like to do an actual bing bing. This will save you 50 quid in January or something. Haven't done it yet. Yeah, and I need to do it. And I'm trying to get this into the Treasury, as you talk about who we talk to, and for that contact in the Treasury, I absolutely have to present it in, this is 50 quid, you won't be subsidising someone's bill in January. Because then they'll go, oh, that's money we're not spending. So I have to do that, it's not in this one yet.
Is it Martin
But yes.
Lewis thing?
Sorry?
Martin Lewis thing?
No, Martin Lewis is a good one actually, and I had put that to one side. I'd like to get this a little bit further before I go to him, but yes, apparently he would be amenable, he seems sensible. And also I know of him for Liar's Poker, do you know that?
Fortunately, no. So that's Martin Lewis, moneysaver.com.
Moneysavingexpert.com, I think.
Yeah. He's been around for
Donkeys.
probably 10 or 15 years doing that sort of stuff.
Anything else? So there's 6 sets
Okay.
up here.
Two final questions.
Oh,
One
oh
there.
okay. Oh, beg your-
One question?
Sorry, I missed you there.
So when you say these savings are 5 to 20%, what assumptions are you making about insulation?
It's the posh term is orthogonal to all of those. Whatever your installation's on, this simply makes your boiler run more efficiently to deliver the same amount of heat.
There was one more question.
On some boilers got an eco mode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what is the?
I don't know, but this will still be independent of that. I mean, basically, this one item is pretty well independent of every other feature of the running of the boiler.
Okay, right. Thank you, Damon. Thank
Right.
you very much.
And when do you do, thank you. When you go to Pub Lake, which one do you go to? Is it the Flyer?
Why would I tell you?
Just then we might find you.
It might be the Betterman Arms, okay? The Betterman Arms, which is in St
It's
Pancras.
just my
Okay.
long-suffering friend is over from the States. He's going back this evening. I promised I'd buy him a drink, and then Bob said, "Oh, could you come and give a talk?" Right. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was really great. Thank you, Damon. It's good that question from the back there, sort of how do you get started? I'm going to put a little plug for Virginia's book, okay, which is all about how you can get your business started, and she'll be talking through what she's been doing for a little while. So Virginia, who I've known for a little while, but she will be talking about her products and what she's learned over the last number of years. She's probably made the same errors that most of the rest of us make. We learn by our errors, and we find out how to do something. We think, I've been trying to look for that for 3 months or 5 months or 6 months, and now I've stumbled upon it. The older they get, in general, the more that you know. The key thing is to get learning new stuff at a faster rate than you forget the old stuff. Okay,
That's
Virginia.
right. And all takings for the book that anyone would like to purchase for this evening will go directly to the Prince's Trust for Entrepreneurs. And so I've got the QR code here for immediate donations. Right, lovely. My name is Virginia and my surname is Rabbits. I'm a chartered level electrical and electronic control systems engineer, and I've been inventing and in the entrepreneur world for over 30 years. So good evening everyone, and welcome to the Business Innovations Centre at the British Library. I have to say it's an absolute honour to be here at the British Library with you all tonight with my first book, The Business Mountain, and I thank you for joining me. Thank you too to Bob, who has always worked tirelessly for the invention and innovation sector for inviting me. I do have one of my friends here too to support me, my friend Marion, who also works in the health and wellbeing sector, as I do currently work part-time as a care assistant in a care home. I have to say it's been busy, and although I work part-time, we all pull our weight in the difficult times. So I have done up to 8 days straight of mostly 12-hour shifts. Bob and I have known each other for over 30 years, and Bob's worked tirelessly for inventors and entrepreneurs like myself. And I believe he may have been with Kingston University for a very long time too. I myself was on the board of directors of Kingston University of Innovation Centre with all our generals and the next level down from our generals, with when Professor David Nicholas of Southampton University was chairman. On the 1st of January 2020, factories were all closed. My agent in China, which had taken me 20 years to find, we are all shut in our homes. There's no food in the shops. We're having to go down the street for food parcels from the charities. I knew then that it wouldn't take long for this to reach the shores of the UK. Knowing I couldn't save the whole country, I was looking around for a way to be able to help save a few people from this. My daughter Joanna was on a world trip at the time. I asked her to get me mountain and waterfall pictures for my book as she went around. You'll see them on this slideshow. I called her and said, get on a plane immediately, you need to leave Thailand now. She said, I'm going on a boat trip, Mum, with my mates. I said, no you're not, you're coming back now. Before Joanna's flight had landed, she had already booked shifts at the care home that she had previously worked for. I said, if it's that easy to book shifts, can I go and work there? Her friends didn't believe me and stayed in Thailand, who shut their borders and went into lockdown. Her friends were given a blue bucket with 2 live chickens in it for their food, and their families had to pay an absolute fortune to organise and fly them out of there. At the care home, I put in lots of suggestions, as we really didn't know the extent of what we were dealing with. My suggestions were called Gin's Tips, affectionately. They also sent my tips to the late Her Majesty the Queen. I would decorate the envelope so that she would know it's from me, as she knew I was one of her inventors. I would send a letter on a Tuesday, and her own postman, all dressed in black with red piping and gold over him, would be on my doorstep by the Thursday with her reply. Now a little about me. I have 5 children. My youngest is a right pickle. He's 11 and his name is Patrick. He got a family member to take him to Costco recently, and he bought 200 Magnums. Anyone knows what Magnums are? They're ice lollies, chocolate on the outside, ice cream in the middle. Children normally buy a pack of 5, just so you know. He then bought himself a huge picnic box and he downloaded the ice cream van music onto his phone. Entrepreneurship can start very early. Now I just want you to have a think about this. This is something in the world of business, not just innovation, not just entrepreneurship, but business in general. Where is the best place to start a new hairdressing shop? Up the road in the next village, round the corner, at the end of the high street, or right next door to the current hairdressing shop? There's lots of psychology in what we do. The answer is right next door. Same passing trade, yours is tidy, theirs is messy. Your cutters are exemplary. Yours has music, theirs doesn't. Their shop is empty, yours is full. What does that tell you? Now I'm happy to take questions at any point during my presentation. You can interrupt me, don't be waiting. So I'd like to continue with the presentation here. Pop this down here.
You use that to go through this
Can
one.
you do it? Can you do it for me?
Yep, yep.
I'll be shaking.
Tell me next and I'll do,
Shaking from
tell me next and I'll do next.
Bear with
Okay.
me.
I'm completely confused. I don't know what is going on here, and I'd just like you to simplify it for my brain cells what you're actually doing.
I am an inventor
No, I know. Yeah,
of a number of products,
sure.
which I've got over here
Okay.
to show you. I have a granted patent for my product. I've been running my business for a long time, and I've been selling it to the supermarkets
Okay.
and the sheds for a long time.
Right.
When I was running my business and I had 5 children, it was too hard for me to write a book. I managed 7 chapters in about 5 years. And so when I had to stop my business, I was then able to write a book because I wanted to be able to help other entrepreneurs. I wanted to be able to pick my book off the shelf and say, what does she say about this? Now this is the first book. I've written 3.5 books so far. 12 books I'll be writing altogether.
So how would you say your journey has been on the inventing experience, should we say, with your product, and what is your product?
Can I run through this and it'll be divulged?
Great.
But
Yeah,
if we've still got the same question,
Yeah,
let me know.
no problem.
Okay.
Because my break is running out, I have to go. But
Oh.
can I buy your book, please?
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Shall I was
Okay, so
as this lady's got to leave, I'm just going to sign that quickly for her.
okay.
Thank you. All right. Sorry. I plan to sign them for you as well.
Thank you. So kind.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've gone on to the slide with your products, Virginia. So looking on the left-hand side, we've got the baby mat, which I've seen at exhibitions. I've seen it winning exhibitions. So it's a changing mat for a baby. Who's ever taken a baby and had to change a nappy? And all the people who didn't raise their hand, you managed to avoid it, so well done. So this was, I saw this at probably 2004 or 2005 at the Ali Pali exhibition. So if you could demonstrate what this does and why it's helpful, and it's a typical story. Most of the people I see in my workshops are people who have come across from a problem and they think, well, I've got this problem, it's a common problem. It's not only me being not dexterous or not bright enough, it's a problem that needs to be solved. So this is the problem that Virginia's equipment solves. Okay, so sort out that baby.
So in general, there are around 500 falls from raised surfaces of babies in the UK every single day. So I designed this product to try and alleviate that problem because most of the children are left with head injuries. So there's around 10 different parts of this product, which is called the nappy time changing mat, which makes nappy changing easier. So it can be used on a raised surface or on the floor. If it's used on the floor, parents kneel on here or carer kneels on here, and so they're in a bit closer
I'll hold it up vertically so you can point that out so people can see. It's not normally used in that position.
Yeah, so there's a stiff board inside, so this is the reason why it can't be tipped over by the child. So if you were in a product which was wide enough and strong enough, you wouldn't be able to move either. This has a wall here to prevent fluids running off onto the grand piano or the bed or the duvet, and has straps which are easily adjustable, and the child can't get out up to age 3. I have a first line of defence because children are wriggling. So you snap on the Velcro first, and then you buckle them up, and they shouldn't be able to open that. In fact, they definitely can't. And also when parents are sitting at the end here on the floor, their thighs come across here, and these positions here are for their ankles. Right, and if you see at the back of the product here, this took a long time to design. It's the baby's own body weight which is holding that shut. Okay, and it's adjusted from behind. So, because I'm an engineer, there's more to this. So, this is the same mathematics as is in the Eiffel Tower. Okay, So on the Eiffel Tower, the 4 pins, the 4 legs of the Eiffel Tower, the spread of weight is even under the whole of the Eiffel Tower. And it's the same with the stiletto heel. So the spread of weight of the person is onto that stiletto heel by a certain amount. So this mass is spread of weight of the child added to their effort that they use to try and escape, which is perpetually spread throughout the product. If that makes sense. But I don't tell everybody that. 'Cause that's like, that's off up there. Okay. So that's this product.
Okay, so the fact that it's rigid, it means the child can't just roll over. It's really got a, well, it would never ever get out of that. So that's
So
that's
I
the
was
product.
selling this product to Amazon, and I was that's fine in 5 countries, and I was also selling to one of the big, we call them sheds, for 10 years, something like that.
Okay. And how did you find a manufacturer? Did it take you sort of a couple of months to find a manufacturer, or a little bit longer?
Can I just ask one question first?
Okay.
So yeah, my first question is, did you design this yourself, or
Yes,
did you
I
get
did.
a design house to design
No, I
it?
designed it myself.
Designed it yourself. How long did it take for the design, or was it iterative? I'm not sure it was an iterative process.
I had young children, 3 young children at the time, so it probably take me about a year to get through to the design I needed that was right, so I could put it in front of a manufacturer and say, stand 20 yards from this because mine is not perfect, but can you just make this for me, please?
Mm-hmm. And is any part of that design patented?
Yes. Yeah, so this was patented under 1 patent. If I patented it under 10 patents, because it has got 10 different things in there, it would have cost me an absolute fortune. So my patent attorney, I wrote my patent myself to begin with. I did it, you know, as best as I could, take the sting out of the cost of writing a patent. I spent 4 days here at the British Library going through every other patent just to see if someone else had done it. And I was copying someone else. Then I came to they had a big red phone here at the time, and if you couldn't find anything after like 4 days, you were allowed to pick this phone up and say, can't find this anywhere. So they said to me, go ahead.
How long ago was this?
At the time, this was in about year 2000. Prior to that, 1999.
So you see, when you actually started, did you get funding for it, or was it a thing where you had the money to facilitate it?
No, I worked part-time for a hotel in St Albans, and I covered all my patenting costs and living costs for a number of years, and I covered it all myself.
Okay, that's cool.
I've got a patent granted in like the baby sector as well, and my problem right now is prototyping. It's not something that I can prototype myself. Again, like his question, I'm finding trouble finding funding, because when it's to get funding for like a startup business, it's more to do with like from like if I was selling cakes or something. Do you understand? So my question is, how can I get funding to do a prototype without like being able to do like an actual business plan?
There are lots of ways of finding funding for what you're thinking of. The British Library actually has a funding system. It's competitive, I believe, but there is a funding system that's actually run here from the British Library.
Yeah, there is a grant finder program, I think. So if you come into the British Library here, do you have a reading ticket?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so if not, you register that you're a reader. It doesn't cost you anything. You have to give your details, and they take a picture of you, and you get a little card. And you can come through here, go through to the business section, and there are experienced people there who will point you in the right direction. So there might be some research to do on a laptop here, and they have access to various databases. And certainly if you're looking at something called Grant Finder, they can actually show you how to work through that. About how much do you think you need? It's going to be £500 £10,000?
It's about 50,000. Yes.
Whatever.
It's a big device.
Okay.
I'm even going Las Vegas in 2 weeks, an IP conference, to like pitch it. But I don't know if I should do it with a prototype or not, because to make the prototype is ridiculously expensive as well.
There is also another website that you can go on to, which is www.j for John, the number 4b grants.co.uk. You can ask me for it later on.
Okay.
They'll tell you all the funds which are coming up.
Okay.
And if you register on there, they will keep you updated.
Okay.
That's quite good usually.
You can actually go to your local council as well and ask them if there are any grant funds available, because they may help you with some part of it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't know what, every council's different, and some will say no, but some will say yes.
Okay.
I had worked in the quasi-public sector as I was Innovation Advisor for Business League in London. That was up to sort of 10 or 12 years ago. Actually trying to hunt down the grant can be actually difficult. So it might be your local authority, there might be a local enterprise agency, it might be something that the Chamber of Commerce administers. So it is very, very fragmented. And when I started this role as the business advisor at Business League, it really frustrated me until I really understood why that had to be. But you really got to work at it. I would suggest you check you've got a reader's card, come in and talk to the people on the information desk here, because they're good people and they actually want to help you.
Have you thought about investment, or are you a company?
I've got, well, the Wayfair Group are helping with marketing at the moment, but right now I'm trying to do it independently because I can only spend like a certain amount of time online trying to search. So that's why I'm going to Vegas, to try and find like investors.
I mean, sometimes if you start a limited company, you've got equity to play with. Just try and find someone, try and sell to someone, get someone else to pay for it. It's a trick.
Yeah.
That'll be in one of my books, but it's not in this one. You can always ask me.
I'll have a chat with you afterwards, okay? So you filed for a patent here, and eventually you got a patent after a little
I
while?
filed the patent on I wanted to file a patent on the 1st of January 2000, but it came to the day and then all the post boxes were nailed shut because there was a strike. I couldn't believe it, because that's just like, oh my goodness, this is all my plans. So I actually filed the patent on the 7th of January, but when I finally got through to grant, and only 1% of products actually get through to grant, I believe, it took till 2003 to get the grant. So it was very, very long process, but I believe it's quicker now. But at the time, I had to work with the world that it was.
Can I just ask, was that a UK patent, or did you go on to file internationally as well?
I did file a UK patent, and then I separately filed a European patent. But I did do a worldwide originally to begin with. Then I stepped back to the European patent, save on costs, and I kept both running, even though the British patent and the European patent covered Britain separately. I kept them still because I felt that I really needed to, because I was in the world pushing out the brand. The brand, you have to build up the brand to give it some power as well as the patent. It's not just, you can't just sit on the patent. And then this is how I progressed.
On that point, let me say I know a little bit about patenting. I've been involved a little bit in patenting over the years. The more I get involved, the more I find it's not a precise process as one might expect. But I would certainly say you can do something yourself, but really at some stage you've really got to talk to a professional. Okay, that is quite important. And particularly if you look at the timing of putting that first patent in, and then do I then make something called a PCT, which puts off 18 months of paying the higher figures. Okay, so
yeah,
at some stage you need to talk to professionals.
I would also say that you don't need to patent everything anyway. I mean, there's a lot of ways of protecting your product. Some are automatic. You have copyright, design registration.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say about this. I always think that the patent is one part, and we're talking about 4 corners of the box. So one is the patent, the other one is your copyright. This is the 4 corners. Then you've got to deal with your trademark, and then you need to deal with your design registration as well. Now there's an awful lot more about business, which is in the book and in the world, and you will learn from other people, more experienced business owners, but for when you're dealing with an invention, this is the four. So this is why I call it the all four corners.
What's your approach to manufacturing it and bringing it to market?
Originally I took it to a local manufacturer. I had them make the product. I ordered the product, and then I went to an exhibition. I was feeling great. I got a manufacturer who's going to make the product, agreed to the price. That took nearly a year, and then while I was at the exhibition, the factory was sold, and they were no longer making products that I was needing. So I looked to do it differently. I had an idea that I'd like to source from China, and I moved over to China to source my product.
So you said you moved it?
I moved my manufacturing. I didn't move there. I'm not going anywhere, I'm staying there.
Just a question to understand, like, when you organized to have your first patent, how much did you have to invest? How much did it cost you to have, at the beginning was the international patent?
I did the PCT to begin with. Now it's difficult to remember the cost because this is a long time ago. So you'll know. Well, you can speak to your if you go to a patent agent. They will give you quotes of how much it costs to file a patent, and it entails a whole load of writing information and drawings, and then your patent gets filed. And you can reduce those costs by get a very good someone else's patent and put yours like underneath it. Does that make sense? So that you take the cost of the sting out of the high price of patents. Now that is a long time ago, not long time ago, but modern times, I'm not really sure what it would cost.
Just to know how much someone should invest for a first patent.
Just to give a rough estimate.
Rough estimate now, I would think you'd be thinking about £2,500.
I spent 24.
You spent 24,000 on your patent.
Yeah, what we're talking about is that filing that initial patent. If it's a simple patent, it might only cost you 1,500. It depends on the complexity of the patent.
It does depend on what you're looking at and how many pages.
How the claims have to be put together. But essentially, for 1,500 to 2,500, you probably get your first patent in, and then the numbers though start adding up about 15 months later, when you then have to choose the territories. So if you're filing in the UK, or as it's called the GB, a patent, that gives you automatic protection in 150 other different countries for this 15-month period. Okay, you've got a golden period, and then the numbers really start adding up when you have to choose your territory.
You have to choose the countries that you're going to patent in, and then you have to choose the countries that you're going to patent in, and then you have to pay for the translations for each country, and that's expensive.
Okay.
And how much are the annual
And they don't tell you that
fees?
when you start out, so it's good that you can hear it in here, because I think I paid about 4,000 per country.
Yeah, could I just mention the translation cost? Some people hear the translation cost and think, well, that's extraordinary. You know, I know someone who speaks French or German or Italian or whatever. But typically, the way the patent is written, when you get to the claims, there is a particular legal journalese, and it just couldn't be your typical translator to say, I'll take that and just translate it into my own language. And that's why the costs tend to be high, because it's got to be a patent attorney whose first language is the language that you want in the country where it wants to be.
It has it's improved because we have the European patent now, and so it's as the price has gone down, even though it's too expensive.
But for example, has to be a recognized translator, or can be like if I speak 5 languages well, can I not write my own translation?
Yeah, okay. Legally, yes, you can.
Okay.
Now, you will only find out
or if there is a challenge and I use the wrong verb, then I'm not protected as much as if a lawyer had written the right verb for it.
Yeah.
I understand.
I'm not worried about doing anything myself, because it's the most important, it can be the most important asset you have in the company. And if you get it wrong, it's very easy to get it wrong. you're going to regret the day you did it yourself. I understand you want to save money, and I think you're right in the sense of doing some things yourself. But initially, I think it must be looked at and done by a professional. And what you're going to do is shop around and find someone who's fair-minded. And just remember, patent agents aren't your friend. They have an agenda to get money off you. So be careful.
Sorry.
We've got one question there.
What are the renewal costs every year for the patent?
For mine?
Yeah.
My patent's out now.
Okay, but
No more renewals.
Okay, but while it was in patent, what were the annual renewal costs you were paying?
For me, about 4,500.
That's what I said. Just remember, each
Also got
territory
that as well.
annual renewal
On
costs.
each patent that you file.
And it gets higher and higher, isn't it, as the years go by, because they think you're doing well, so you can afford it.
Can I just ask, was there a reason that your patent is out? Was it no more useful?
Run
or-
20 years.
Oh, it's...
Okay, but I filed a design registration as well, so that's still going for another 5 years. And that is quite powerful as well, because I've had problems and I've managed to solve them by saying, look, I'm under design registration, you have to go away, and they've gone away. So there are ways of dealing with that.
And has there been a time where actually you had to challenge someone that you have used your patent essentially? Someone tried to copy you, or you?
Yeah, I've had one of the big sheds. They filled up the whole of this room and that room over there with all my products.
Yeah.
And I have a number of lawyers in my family. My youngsters, my children are lawyers. My sister's a lawyer. My friends are lawyers. So I felt like I got my own legal team. But what I actually did was I wrote to the chief executive of that company, and they all disappeared from that building on that same day.
Do you have any licensing deals for the patent?
I did try to find licensing. I was thinking, oh, it'd be great to have a royalty. Tried and tried and tried. Same with the publishing of the book. Tried and tried to find a publisher. And I got to the point, it's like, I can do this myself. And that happened with the product, and it's happened with the book too. So I've started up my own publishing company, and I will be able to publish other people's books as well.
It's interesting because, I mean, this design is 20 years old, and I have seen that design before, but I'm not sure it's the same brand. But I just wanted to know because I've seen very similar products.
Yeah, you'll find. Well, these have been and still are in the motorway service stations. So I was selling to the public facilities sector, and I was selling to the public as well.
Are they on aeroplanes as well?
They were about to be, but then we have problems in the world. It's like
What would that retail for?
this retails for £25, but I have shelved the business while COVID was tricky. Where we're looking at this one, I have worked with factories in the UK. I've worked with factories in China, but I would prefer now to have my own factory here. And so I am in the process of designing a welding machine, which normally costs £50,000, to make this myself. So I have a number of the big car manufacturers, engineers are helping me around the back door, and the aerospace engineers are also helping me around the back door to produce this, so I can have my own factory, I have my own control. I'm a terrible control freak, but I do understand also that you have to let go. But in this case, I don't want to. Can we have a next slide?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned licensing. Licensing is always difficult. Any queries on licensing? Mark has done a lot of licensing successfully.
Sorry, this lady here, before you go, did have a question.
I was only going to say I'm actually a patent translator, getting back to your point. You're probably talking about a markup of, I don't know, 50% or so if you get your patent agents to do your translations.
Right.
As opposed to approaching freelance directly.
Right.
Based on
So
my
it could be a bit lower
experience 10 years ago.
How do we find
Thank
you?
you. Some of you probably need to get this lady's name.
Okay, yes. Could you hold her down at the end? Okay, we'll
She's going now. Do you have any cards you could leave behind?
I do.
Lovely. If you'd like to leave them on the table, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Thank
that'd
you.
be
Which
good.
language? French and German into English. So it's probably not the directions you want anyway, but
Excuse me. In terms of finding a reliable manufacturer in China, so how did it work? I mean, What do you think is the best way?
Best way, to my mind, is to find out, go to the big stores, see what's already made, try and find the closest product to what you're thinking of in their stores, look at the manufacturer. A lot of the time the manufacturer's not on there, but you can do search and search and search until you find out who on earth is making that, because if they're making that product, they'll make yours. But not only that, China is renowned for, well, has been renowned, not necessarily, but will go off and make your product and you've only gone to show it to them. You can do non-disclosures, you can do really powerful. I have three types of non-disclosure that I use, and depending on how powerful I need it to be, I will nail whoever it is that I'm showing my product to. The thing about it is, you found this product very similar to yours. You go to that manufacturer and you say, I've seen this, you're making this. Can you make this?
But how can you
They won't copy your product. They won't go selling it around the world because they won't want soiled what they're already selling from themselves into this country, because they won't want the bad press. So that's how you deal with China.
But how do you actually get in contact with them? That's the thing.
In China, there is a website called madeinchina.com. And if you go on there and you go into the sector that you're looking at, then you can find whatever you need, really. And there is another website as well that you can use for China, but it escapes me.
Well, the Alibaba
That's
website.
it, the Alibaba
website.
There's two. Alibaba is another one.
Okay.
And really, there are more, but those are the only two you really need.
So that's made in China and
Madeinchina.com. It's made-in-china.com.
I mean, alternatively, you might try to find an agent who will work for you to find the factory, to find the right factory, to do a little bit of management on your products going through the factory. I've visited lots and lots of factories in the UK and quite a lot of factories in Europe. So I'm experienced at going in and looking at factories and forming some conclusion, either right or wrong. I wouldn't do that with China. I would tend to say I will find an agent. I will pay the agent to do that for me. They might be based in China or in Hong Kong, and that's one route I think I would use. Any views, Mark?
I wouldn't do that personally.
Okay.
I tried to do that. I tried to do that. I tried to find an agent. I found an agent. In the end, I found an agent, and it took me 20 years to find an agent.
The way
And
I
then
do
COVID.
it is a trade mission usually. I go on a trade mission with the DTI, and they have events at the British Embassy normally, and then you invite people to drop-in days and parties, and you invite them in areas. I mean, Guangzhou or whatever. You'll be making a handbag or something. You'll get 4 or 5 factories coming and see you, and the embassy knows who the good ones are and the bad ones are, so they vet them for you, and you go and see them. You hire a car and a translator, and you go and see them physically. That's if your project is big enough, perhaps.
Yeah, I think I can understand that if your project is big enough. It's at the smaller level, it's only going to be, let's say, £250,000 a year or whatever, and then that's harder.
And
So I remember,
Hong Kong ain't on 100%, so I would never go to Hong Kong. They have it made in Guangzhou or something.
well,
Generally.
the agent I had dealings with a while ago was China 2 West, who were based in Hong Kong.
Sure.
And I met the 2 guys who'd set it up, whose qualifications were really, really good for setting it up. One was ex-Army and the other one was ex-Royal Navy. So they had the discipline and the organisation and the structure in place. And that's the sort of organisation that I would use. Okay.
So one more. What was the minimum order quantity when you went to your manufacturer?
They usually have their own ideas, the manufacturers, as to what a minimum quantity is. But it depends on your budget. So if you think, okay, I only want 250 of these, I'm going to really negotiate hard to get that, they may say to you, minimum we're going to do is 5,000, and it is a stand up, sit down situation. Negotiating, yeah, which is in that book as well, how to do that. And you might arrive at, let's say, 1,000. That's how it works. But when you ask a manufacturer for quotes, you ask them to send you, could you send me price breaks on my product? And then they'll give you, because they'll think you know what you're talking about, and they'll give you price break. If you buy this many from us, it's going to cost this. And they'll probably give you 5 price breaks. But that's the key to the manufacturers.
My advice on that one, to add something to that, is if you've got those price breaks and there's this is for 1,000 off and this is for 5,000, this is for 50,000, if you can afford it in the first place, go for the lowest figure. You might actually be buying at the same price you ought to be selling for that first batch. That's a learning period that you're going to go through, rather than saying, oh, I've got to go for 50,000, otherwise the numbers don't work out. And by the way, I haven't actually sold any yet. Okay, so just council thought about that batch size. Is any views, Mark?
Yeah, lost leader really, I think you call that. And your break even be much quicker, of course.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. No, I like that idea.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not a bad idea to sell your product
What, to
for
sell
the
it on
same
somebody
price
else?
as you're buying it for,
Earlier-
just to
earlier
begin
adopters,
with.
you call that.
Yeah. So
Just
you know,
to begin
if
with,
it's this
because
product,
it gets you into the market.
Sure.
and let's say if I can buy 1,000 of these, or let's say I can buy 200 of these, and it's going to cost me £20 each. No idea what the numbers are. Okay, I'm not going to make any money, but I got the product. I can sell the product, particularly online. I mean, that really cuts through a lot of the issues. Okay, and say, okay, so I've done the 200. I've got feedback from those, because when I put it out, I say put feedback on my website. Okay, so the next batch then it might be 5,000. It might be £15 each. Now, if I do the sums and it's 5,000, I've got to pay £15 each. That's an investment of £75,000. I'll say it very quickly. Okay, so the numbers. This is the hardest bit of the bit, I guess, when you're starting and when you're building up.
There is something else about China. So when you go to them and they give you a price, the price you're expecting should be 10% of what you could get it made for here. But they'll come back with something which is more like 65%. So I say to you, this is what I call dollars on the eyelids. Okay, they think we're from Britain, we're all wealthy, we can afford it, we don't know what we're doing.
Okay. Yep.
I've experienced with China because we've got our own production of our own products at the moment, which we're slowly pushing into the market, which is called Gummy Pod. And we've been working with China, or I've been working with China for now since 2015. And I met them through Alibaba.
Alibaba, there we go.
And you know, similar to the products that I was creating, but I quickly built up a